We're good to go.
Okay. We'll call the Tilton Northfield Fire District Budget Committee meeting to order. All those present, except that this is for December 16th. It is currently 5:30. Those present, in place of Paul Ogier, we have Commissioner Sattler, myself, Dennis Manning, Eric Pyra, Jane Alden, Paul Blaisdell, Scott Lewandowski, and Chief Seatar. I didn't miss anybody this time, did I? Okay. I guess first things first, public comments, members of the district. Seeing none, I guess we'll move forward. Review the 11/18 minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read them?
Yeah, I just had a question on the overtime. I'm trying to find it here. The overtime amount on the top is $369, but in it says $269. So I don't remember us decreasing $500.
Didn't decrease it at all.
Okay. That must be
That's a typo.
Okay.
So you're saying it's, what page?
Page 3, towards the top. I don't remember what page it is in our A&R.
Item 4, on page 4.
Yeah, we did agree to 369, 288. So I guess if we were meant to amend that to reflect the 369, 288.
That's a Scribner's error.
Oh, I see, yeah. She's got it right there in 111. Yeah, okay. Okay, so, yeah, the correction, 111 overtime, 369, 288, where it says, Dennis made the motion to fund the line, and for 269 needs to be changed to 369.
Yeah.
288, not 86. Gordon's probably typing feverishly on those. She's got about 6 pages here.
Yeah, she had a long meeting. That's the only thing I saw.
Anybody else? All right, hearing none, I'll accept the motion to accept the minutes.
Motion to accept the minutes of November 18th
As
as
amended.
amended.
I'll second.
Motion, and a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those against, nay.
I abstain.
All right, so we'll put those in there. We'll wait for those will be corrected. All right, so you see, we've got here on the agenda, you see review of, or the 2025 budget line 4150 auditing.
Yeah, what's that about?
So we have an auditor that's coming in to audit our future liabilities. And we need to do that so that when we do go to get any funding for construction, that won't be a bad check mark in our audit. And so we went out to bid for that, and we had a gentleman come in who was recommended by Tim Pearson. He came in at $2,250 or something like that. And the commissioners accepted that and changed their recommendation from $10,400 to $12,650 to accommodate that additional fund.
I will make a motion to fund line 4150 in the amount of $12,650.
I'll second that.
Second. Okay, now we have a motion and a second. Discussion on that?
What, so do we have another quote, or is that the only quote that you
That
have?
was the only quote he sent us to get.
Oh, okay, so we just have that one quote?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that something we normally put out to bid?
No. This is something that we had to do because we have the future funding, and Tim Pearson began to purchase it. Asked this guy for a price, and he gave us a price, and when the price came back, Tim says, "Oh, that's a great price, it's really less than what he's charging the town." So
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
Well, no, when you're auditing this on contract, right?
yes.
3 years?
Yeah.
The district doesn't usually do that type of audit because we don't usually, well, we don't have any future liabilities. So we don't spend the money when we have the audit done to have that portion of the audit done. But the audit does always, put us down as not having that done, which then comes into bond rates and whatnot when you go out for a loan. So we thought it was prudent at this time then to have that actually completed.
Right, to reiterate what Paul said, that's good for, that audit's good for 3 years.
Well, the contract that we have with our auditor is for 3 years of terms. So this is a
That's a
one-time,
yearly
this,
audit.
as far
Yearly.
as I'm aware of, this is a one-time expense.
We'll only have that done this year.
Right. But my concern is like, so that'll take us, the audits, like you said, they're done annually, how?
But this is different than the normal audit.
Right,
this
I was
one
just
is-
curious about the timeframe, how, you know.
So this audit will take place in January, and it'll audit the 2024 budget year, and also the audit for the 2024 budget year takes place at the end of January into February. And so that audit will be completed, so when the main audit is done, we'll be able to check that box off. That it's completed.
Okay, and that'll cover us.
1 year, essentially, right?
Essentially, yeah,
Right.
because those are probably.
If we were to get a bond, a
next year.
warrant for a bond for a building, so
So
that's in
this-
preparation for 2026.
Yeah, so
Okay.
anything that we do for 2026 would have to be using the 2024
Right,
year, because 2025 audits won't be completed when we go before a district meeting.
right.
You mean in 2025 year or 2026?
In 2026,
Okay.
2025's audit won't be completed.
Right. If we go for a bond in, say, March of 2026, the 2025 audit won't be complete at that time.
Okay.
So it's the 2024.
Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor state so by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion carries.
I would like to readdress line 211, dental insurance. We voted on 30,470, which was one, we had confirmed at that point there would be one buyout.
The buyout was for the health insurance, not the dental insurance.
Yeah, got
The
it.
dental insurance, everybody signed up for that. So the amount that we have in there that was approved by the commissioners is the amount that we're going to.
So you had 19 employees
Yes,
enrolled with that?
correct.
Do you have anything else, Paul?
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we can move into the warrant articles. Is everybody else all set with the budget the way it stands? Move into the warrants? The way I read it, I was just,
It's okay.
So what's changing here is that one line, about the fifth line down,
Third line down.
third line down, sorry, after the dates, to restrict revenues from the ambulance billing. So right now, any monies that's generated from the ambulance billing goes into this
Right.
fund. We're going to change the verbiage to say ambulance and other emergency services billing. So for example, that will allow any other funds that are collected from providing services to go into that fund. So say, for example, we respond to a car accident where they don't need any medical care. We're just there helping direct traffic and, prevent a fuel spill or whatever. we can collect from the auto insurance for our services to be there at the accident scene. But the fund didn't allow that money received to go into it, so that money would just go into the general fund. So this verbiage change is to allow any money that we receive for providing emergency services to go into that fund.
Might I suggest that you put the two words ambulance billings in parentheses or in quotations, because that's the verbiage that you want to replace, right? Those two words you're looking to
So ambulance
replace.
billing should
Yeah,
go
right.
into.
I think so.
Yeah, because that's the phrase we're changing.
Yeah.
So that makes sense, good catch.
Can we, I don't know if it's appropriate, can we like highlight it, underline it?
I think you could put it italics or something like that.
Make it easier to read.
I would suggest that.
Yeah,
Yeah, at least have the quotations.
Now, these have these been, we have to have these approved by DRA, right?
Yeah.
both our local attorney, our counsel, and DRA has to approve them.
Right, but they have not yet.
Nope.
Okay, so we're not changing it, it's been approved. Right, that's what I thought, so.
So the only thing changing is that line.
Ambulance
Ambulance.
billing to ambulance and other emergency services billing.
No, I get that. I was going on, it's the fun, I'm just like.
Right.
So, okay, I'm tracking.
Probably if you put it in italics, it'd be less than.
I'd say it is confusing now, like just for me to know like what it was originally to what you're changing it to. I mean, that question stuff.
So,
Yeah.
But it'll be, I mean, when we get to the hearing and we get to district meeting, we'll just articulate that so everybody understands.
well, maybe we put a slide up where it's highlighted.
Yeah,
Yeah, current and then on the big screen, that would probably.
so long as we're all tracking, if he gets asked, we can answer. Okay, on that note, is there any other discussion on that article? Hearing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor of recommending this by the budget committee, state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The budget committee recommends Article 11. Flip the page to Article 12. Establish a contingency fund. To see if the district will vote to establish a contingency fund per RSA 31:98 alpha and raise and appropriate $36,550 to put into the fund. This sum to come from the unassigned fund balance. Any appropriation left in the fund at the end of the year will lapse to the general fund. Funds appropriated from this fund do not affect the tax rate. This article is recommended by the Board of Commissioners and is not yet recommended by the Budget Committee. I move to approve or to recommend for approval by the Budget Committee, Article 12. Do I have a second? It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. This is another one that's kind of an every year thing.
So
It doesn't get approved every year.
what,
No.
what was your contingency fund for 2024?
30,000.
Where do you see that?
Yeah, it's on the
So-
spreadsheet.
It's a percentage, isn't it?
Yes, it's 1% of the previous
Right.
year's voted operating budget,
Right.
So
which includes any warrant articles that are subject to the operating budget. So last year's voted operating budget was $3.55 million plus $100,000, which is on the operating side that went into the land building fund. So the 1% allowed from the previous year is $36,550. So that's how you arrive at that sum.
So how much of the 30,127 did you spend?
0.
So the general fund now has $30,000 in it that was earmarked for contingency but not used.
Right, and at the end of this year, it'll go right back into the, it'll stay in the general fund. Like, we didn't use it, so it lapses back into the general fund.
So why aren't you asking for 6,000?
Because well, the RSA requires that the entire amount previously appropriated, whatever's left of that entire amount that you didn't use, that whole amount has to go back and you have to re-vote the full number for the following year.
So the money goes back and then you gotta put it back in the budget. Anything in the general fund that's not expended goes into the unassigned fund balance, right? So we're just pulling the money out, and then when we don't spend it, it goes back.
So now, so what's the balance on the unassigned fund balance?
It's 30,000.
No, a whole lot of.
The whole thing.
I'd just be guessing. I thought it was
It's 300 and something
Yeah, I
thousand.
thought it was in the 300,000. Which isn't,
It's not enough.
not quite enough.
You should have like 500 and something thousand. I have,
That's gonna affect our
I
bond.
think we have this discussion every year. That's one of the numbers you have to know. It's gotta be right on the tip of your tongue. You gotta be waiting.
it's in my PowerPoint presentation that I have up. Let me see if I can find it on my phone here. OneDrive.
I think one of the things that makes the district's budget so difficult is migrating all those expenditures over to the apparatus and equipment fund just leaves you with costs that you don't really have a lot of control over. You know, you gotta heat the buildings, and you gotta buy fuel for the vehicles, and you gotta pay health insurance and FICA taxes, and
Yeah, there's not a lot of trimming that can be done, but
well, like we saw last year, you know, when we had to trim, a lot of it was training, like that budget right now. But you're right, there's not a lot left.
so if we've got $300,000 just sitting there, that, trying to get
All
like.
right, I got it.
If you have 300,000 just sitting there that is unassigned, you have no place for it.
The DRA says you should have X amount. We're not close to that, we're short.
I can tell you exactly, because I already did this slide. Currently, we have $360,587 in unassigned fund balance.
Note the percentage.
Then there's transfers that we approved in the warrant articles, if they all get approved, comes out as unassigned fund balance. That leaving a balance of, in last year it was 271,000. What we need in the fund balance is $534,045. So that leaving less than required by policy. So we actually have a policy that was supposed to have 16.667% of the operating budget.
But that's a policy, not a DRE requirement.
It's not a DRA requirement, but it is a requirement by the accounting people. And so that's one of the other things that they look at when you're going to borrow money. Are you following all the policies and recommendations? I think it's ASPE or something. GASPE.
General
Accounting.
accepted accounting principles or
Yeah.
practices.
So, of everything that we do most things very well. This is one thing we'll do most short on.
One thing that's changed that has helped is we are getting payments monthly from both towns. And in the past, that wasn't always the case. They pay us quarterly, but after the fact. And obviously, the intent is not to have to borrow money to make payroll until you're waiting for a
Substance,
Yeah.
which saves on interest.
What does the 36,550 do for you?
It just sits there in case at the end of the year, I can tell you, we're pretty close this year of expending our entire budget.
I mean, as far
But
as
what,
meeting percentages or accounting requirements or anything like that.
it's allowed by the RSA for you to, it allows you to have a contingency fund, which is controlled by the fire commissioners. So nothing is to come out of that fund unless it is approved by the fire commissioners, and that's only in the case of, at the end of the fiscal year, you can't make payroll. You're gonna have to do something, because you can't not make payroll.
How did you come up with 36,550?
That's the 1% of last year's operating.
And you have 271 right now in the unassigned fund balance.
Less any other warrant articles that get approved.
No, that already,
Well,
that
But-
already
but-
pulled out the warrant articles.
The commissioners can't use the unassigned fund balance without a vote from the district.
Say that again?
The commissioners can't use the unassigned fund balance without a vote from the district. So at the end of the year, if you're running short on the budget, and using the chief's example, you couldn't make that last week's payroll, you would have to petition the court for a special
we would have,
district meeting.
well, there's two ways of going about it. The best way would be to just go to DRA and request that you overextend your budget.
We had to do that.
We did that in 2014, and they allowed it.
So having that contingency fund that the commissioners can spend allows you to avoid that.
Because
we
going to
never-
DRA is a process. Or
We
going
have-
to
we haven't
Superior
used-
Court is a
Well,
process.
I think that's a good thing. I don't think it should be convenient.
It's not convenient. I mean, as a person really responsible for making sure that we don't use it, I do everything in my power to make sure that we don't use the contingency fund, but sometimes.
That's what the whole contingency
That's
fund
my
is for.
fair.
Yeah.
So you don't, I mean, because worse than having to go to DRA to overspend the budget is to not have a fund or enough in a contingency fund to cover, i.e. like payroll. Because like the chief says, you've got to make payroll. So here we are at the end of the year, we can't make payroll, and then we go like, I mean, yeah, what do you do at that time? Yeah, you can go to DRA, but that's not, somehow you're gonna pay, like, so we gotta borrow money, right? We gotta borrowing money to make payroll, that is ludicrous. And to put ourselves in that position.
Well,
it's
at
like,
the end of the day, $36,000 doesn't pay one payroll.
no, it's
No.
peanuts.
It does. Well, I would doubt we'd ever get to a situation where $36,000 wouldn't cover where we're shot. Because you know if you're gonna be shot coming
Well-
into November, December, you know where you definitely kind of figure out where you're gonna land.
Here's my thing about having a discussion about this. If you're going to say, we may need this to meet payroll, and we don't want to have to go to DRA to access the unassigned fund balance, that argument holds weight with me if that's enough to make payroll. But if that's only going to cover 1/4 of your
No,
bi-weekly
it covers
payroll,
almost all of it right now. I did payroll today, it was, I'm trying to think of the bottom line on the right-hand side, was, it was less than $30,000.
It's not just about payroll, though. I mean,
Because there
this
was
last
no
year,
holiday involved.
I get it, but if that's the argument you're gonna use, then that's the argument that's in front, and
Well,
that's
you
the
know,
one you're
it's-
gonna defend.
it's-
But this is the maximum allowed by the RSA. I can't make it more than that.
You said this is the maximum that's allowed?
By the
1%,
RSA.
yeah, 1% of last year's.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just saying that we have to be able to justify it.
Oh, I read you in the chart, yeah, we don't want to be targets up there, like, I mean, normally we're like targets, it's like a shooting gallery up there. So, yeah.
Less concerned per se about that, but I am concerned about if we're bonding a heavy bond in a year, that we're not gonna be a good bond rating. But we can't do anything, really, we can't do anything about it at this point, unless we do a warrant article that dumps.
That's the only
Money
way,
into that.
that's the only way you could do it, is do a warrant article that funds that.
Is what is our letter
Yes.
rating right now, do you know?
I don't know.
Because that's gonna be massive if you're talking about a bond. Of the size I'm thinking it's gonna, if we're down even 1 point, it's gonna be a huge number.
So I think, I don't know, I know the process, of what I would recommend that we do when we do this construction project is to, if it's approved at the 26th meeting, we have approximately $1 million, and what we'll do is we'll get a construction loan that will take out bits and pieces as we need it, won't bond it yet. Once the project is complete and we've spent all the money that we know, up to the guaranteed maximum price, then that's the number that we bond. Less the $1 million that we had to invest, that paid for any interest on the construction loan or other things that might happen.
So we could have a couple of years.
So we could have a couple of years
better.
before we're actually paying on a bond where, when we go to actually get the bond, that we could supplement this fund with warrant articles. Instead of supplementing $100,000 a year towards the land and building fund, we throw $100,000-something a year into the unassigned fund balance to get that to the appropriate amount accepted by GASP.
Yeah.
So what you're saying right now is that there's a fire district policy that we have to maintain 16.67% in a fund,
Yes.
contingency fund. Yet there's nothing.
No, that's the unassigned fund balance. The 16.67% is the unassigned fund balance.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
The contingency fund
Okay.
is 1% of the previous.
So there's no warrant article here stating that you want to add 200 and something grand to the unassigned fund balance in order to meet your own policy.
That's
Do
correct.
you see
I
an issue there?
I do, and when I approached that before, using your argument, I was told that we're not going to do that
You were told we're not going to do that?
by some people on the budget committee that aren't here anymore.
So,
Because those people's philosophy was that if we put money in the unassigned fund balance to comply with the policy, that increases the tax rate that year, or that's, any money left in the unassigned fund balance could be used to offset the tax rate. So their motivation was to decrease the tax rate rather than to comply with the policy.
so
And I guess maybe I should have brought it up this year with the commissioners this year for a warrant article, but I
Well,
failed to do that.
I think I would suggest that if we're not going to maintain that 16.67%, that we either scrap or modify that policy to a number that we intend on maintaining. Because it decreases it undermines every policy that you have in your policy manual if you pick and choose which ones you want to enforce or abide by.
I agree.
So my suggestion is get rid of that policy, modify that policy, or give us a warrant article to maintain it. And then by doing that third option, what you're doing is you're telling the taxpayers that, from my point of view, yours, this is a valid policy and I want to encourage it and I want to fulfill it. It's your opportunity to say, I don't want you to follow that policy.
I
That way it's on the voters, not on
I
you.
follow exactly what you're saying, and I couldn't disagree more. I mean, couldn't agree more.
Where does 16% come from? There must be some
It's a-
justification
Yeah,
somewhere.
Basically, it's, it would take us, 2 months to expend that if we weren't getting any revenue.
But can we change that? Like, would they, like, if you were like, hey, let's lower this to 10%.
Well, it wouldn't comply
It
with the
wouldn't comply
gas,
with-
it wouldn't comply with
Okay.
the gas fee regulations.
But that's a policy that only the commissioners can vote on, to accept that policy or not. So I might recommend to the commissioners that you guys think about that.
Or we could just get up in the meeting and vote to increase the budget by $250,000. Because at the meeting, everybody gets up and wants to increase the budget.
But yeah, it's,
What that's
I just think it just
I mean, but-
undermines the credibility of your
Yeah.
whole policy.
But then you run into, at every district meeting I've been to, we sit there and we get amendments from the floor to lower the budget. And every time you do that, it makes it impossible for the district to have any money left at the end of the budget year to go into the fund balance.
Exactly.
Because all year long, what are we not gonna do?
Yeah, I was
So-
just gonna say that.
So asking for, more money at the meeting,
But it would be counterintuitive to change that policy, because here again, now,
no, I love Paul's idea, put a warrant article, then let people ask all the questions, because why are you asking for this money, it doesn't make any sense to me. You go
Right.
through this whole explanation, and then they go, well, yeah, I don't want to do that, so raise my taxes, and they all vote it down. And then you have it on record that we're trying to maintain this policy, and the district voters voted that.
right, and that's fine and dandy as far as how people feel when they go home. My bigger concern is like, where the hell does that leave the fire department at the end of the goddamn day? You got, it's like if we, and the only, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with all the aspects, but again, if we keep lowering the threshold, we're constantly lowering everything, and it makes it counterintuitive to the, the
We've
sound
lowered
operation
that-
of the fire department.
We've lowered that threshold right now to 0%.
Right, because I was gonna bring up exactly what you said. We got cut, so the chief's been, we've cut training, I mean, who really needs a trained paramedic working on me when I'm trying to save my life anyway, but right? So you cut the hell out of training, and, oh, what? Well, no, but seriously, I get frustrated too, because I sit on this board, and a lot of times you go to the meeting, it's like, no, I don't get paid for this job, I pay taxes into this as well. So I have a valid voice, but we get shot at by people who just have zero understanding of what the unfunded, what is the unfunded, unassigned fund balance, right? They don't understand that, and then, so here we have most of the warrant articles on here this year do not affect the tax rate, and we're taking it, so the whole process of taking it out of there so that we can use it, they don't understand that we can't use it if we leave it in there unless we get a special meeting that a judge says is okay. It's that whole process, that there's a disconnect with most of the people that show up at a meeting or don't show up at a meeting. And again, so here we are at 200 some odd thousand, well below where we probably should be, which is, like you brought up, Scott, it's going to have a negative effect on our, as far as the bond rating goes. So it's just like, we're setting ourselves up for failure every single time, and then you've got those that show up and say, hey, let's not pay our bills and see where that gets us. In court, now we pay more money.
You got $130,000 remaining in the budget this year that you gotta get through. Let's just say the chief spends $125,000 of that. That's $5,000, you put it back in the unassigned fund balance. It's not, it does nothing.
That's peanuts. But anyway,
I was just thinking, spitball, we're gonna have time potentially, just something I don't know the answer to, but if you take whatever this proposed is, 271, is there any way you can get quotes from a bond company to see how that would affect it? If we did, let's say hypothetically dump $250,000 and over the next 3 years to get that rating up, like what the shared savings would be, because I amount that it's gonna be well above the 200,000 we put in would be the savings.
I don't know, but that, yeah, I'd have to.
Like, that might be a
Yeah,
good
that'd be a
number.
good question.
To, when they say, hey, why do you want 200,000, and well, we go for the
I
bond.
would say let's
Yeah, we go for bond next year, we're gonna get an interest point below, which is gonna save us $2 million over 20 years. I
Right.
think if we had that to show the public, I think it'd be a no-brainer, where they'd be like, oh yeah, we need to.
I don't know if they have,
You would
I
think
can
that.
say.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I know for a 1.725 bond was $850,000 over 20
Oh,
years.
there's a ladder.
Yeah, and that, in my head, it took me a long time to figure out why that, 1.75 asset is now costing almost $3 million. But, and it's the same thing we're gonna have to look at with the station. It's not gonna cost, whatever we're bonding, at
off that plus.
Plus interest.
yeah, plus that, so we can knock that interest payment down. Now, I don't know if we're there yet in today's format, but I think if we maybe went to the meeting and we're like, hey, start the education process for next year, because I think that's a great idea. If we get it approved, not putting 100,000 in the land and building trust, you put 100,000, and then over 3 years, we'll get to that goal and do the big bond. I think it's a good goal to start educating and working towards, for sure. I don't think we can fix it tonight,
Right.
but I think in this, last warrant article we're trying to vote on, I think we should.
That's a great discussion, I'm glad you brought it up.
In actuality, it can be fixed, not by us tonight, but the commissioners could write another warrant article.
Actually, you can fix it tonight. You can amend your appropriation to the operating budget, the overall number in the operating budget.
I don't know, maybe, I just like.
You could.
like, look at-
And then, but we don't spend
I
it.
just don't know if I have enough information. I like where this, I'd have to see those two side by side.
Let's go, I was gonna fall out of his chair. over
Yeah,
there.
I like it, maybe for next year, but I don't know this year if we're there, I don't know if I have information now to say it's a great idea. But I like it.
I'm just saying technically,
Yeah.
it could be done.
Yeah.
But on that note, I'll tell you what, how about if we come back to 12? I think, and I don't know, we've digressed quite a bit, but I don't want to take anybody's voice away, but we've got a motion to approve this, or recommend for, the budget committee recommended for approval on Article 12. Do we take a vote? All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The budget committee recommends Article 12.
I would argue that we did not digress.
No, well,
It was all very constructive.
We turned up without a creek.
well, no, I was just saying it was to the set amount or whatnot, but yes, it was all. And we don't have to do anything with 13. But we can, is this just an FYI, or do we need to, we want to talk about this?
When's the next time we
timetable?
I just want to touch on it, is it February
Well, you have the,
14th technically?
that's the last day it can be. I think we're looking at sometime during, the 14th is a Friday, the 14th is Valentine's Day. I don't know if anybody has, maybe a loved one they want to be with that evening instead
Sure.
of coming to a.
If you don't want anyone to show up, that'd be good.
I think we'll probably have the hearing sometime
Oh,
earlier
that's on
that
a
week.
Friday.
Yeah, no, that's the last day it can
Right.
possibly be.
Right, yeah,
We're looking at a Monday or a Wednesday.
right.
I think the commissioners are meeting Tuesday that week. And if the commissioners want to have the public hearing the same night they have their regular commissioners meetings, that would be Tuesday. If they want to have it a separate night, it would have to be Monday or Wednesday, or even possibly Thursday, but I think, the select board is in here on Thursday, so we might have to go somewhere else or something.
February 11th?
Oh, so these are just,
But we're trying to find out when Northfield and Tilton's having their public hearings as well, so trying not to flip with those. But if we set ours first, will they try not to conflict with us?
In school.
Yeah, I don't know what the school's gonna do either.
They have like a whole other week because they're.
Yeah, they're later, they're a little bit later.
so You guys would like to do it, try for February 11th, your meeting? Is that what you'd like to do, Tim?
We haven't discussed it, but I would be in favor of that.
It works for me. I can absolutely not do the third Tuesdays of any month, so the second would be beautiful. And not on a Friday would be a bonus. I mean, be a bonus to get the public out there. I think if we held it on a Friday night, then nobody would show up.
Gives you
What, February 11th?
No, well, I'm just saying, opposed to like Friday the 14th.
what if we did like the 4th, February, that first Tuesday, just to give you a little cushion for weather?
You have the Northfield Selectmen meeting
Yes.
that night. Northfield Selectmen meeting on the 4th.
And I was saying that because I know you brought up that you guys would like to roll it into your regular meeting.
Well, they haven't discussed it yet, but
That Tuesday night seems to be a good night for those people interested in the district.
Right.
So having it that same night, Tilton Selectmen aren't meeting, the Northfield Selectmen aren't meeting.
Right. Right. So, but I mean, if that's our preference, we just leave that up to you and Kathy to arrange, Chief?
well, the budget hearing is for the purview of the budget committee. The regular hearing on the warrant articles is the commissioner's purview. They're actually two separate hearings.
Right.
And usually we have the budget hearing directly followed by the warrant article hearing, and then we roll into the commissioner's meeting. Unless we want to start early on the commissioner's meeting.
It's gonna be a long night.
We've had a few.
Well, with the typical response to a budget public hearing, there'll probably be one or two people here for that.
Well, last year we had quite a few.
Yeah, we haven't did it anyway.
Right, yes. We were in the police station.
Yeah.
Is that what we do anyways?
Yeah, probably a couple dozen.
Yeah.
Yes, because our budget went up quite a bit because we absorbed the other firefighters into the operating budget. And we had quite a large raise. in our
Should
budget.
we seek to have it there anyway, over at the police station?
It's up to you.
Do you need a motion from this body for that date or something? Because I know you're saying it's up to this body for the
It's up to
budget.
you to decide when you want to have it, the budget hearing.
I'll throw it there. I move we have it on the 11th.
The 11th is good.
The same, if we want to do the same, follow like what we have done in the past. I mean, I would move to do the 11th.
All right then.
What's the time of day?
It's 6 o'clock.
I think we always go a little later with that.
Usually go at 7, I believe.
7.
Then, because I talked to Kathy about this today, she says if it's going to be on the same night, commissioners, she said should start like at 5 o'clock.
5?
Get the commissioners meeting over and then do the hearings, so that we're not here
Yeah.
at 12:30.
Well, I think if it's a public hearing, it has to be at a time that's amenable to the public.
Yes.
What time do you guys normally meet, the commissioners?
We usually meet at 5:30.
Yeah, I was gonna say 5:30, yeah.
So, I mean, that would, in theory, work. We could have our meeting first, we could publicize the public hearing for 7. And I don't know if you have to publicize the time for the next one too?
I think the last year we said immediately following.
So you schedule them both for 7 and one follows the other. Or however.
Yeah, because the public hearing on the budget, it's only the Article 3 that the Budget Committee discusses.
So we're just gonna present that one.
It's the budget, it's the operating budget.
Right.
And so people may have specific questions about the operating budget,
All right, so I'm not gonna follow like the same thing tonight, like going over every single one of them.
Where are you gonna have that meeting? You can't have it in this room because planning board will be in this room
So
on that Tuesday.
We were thinking maybe over the PD.
I'll see if we get the PD.
So what time will we stay in 7 for?
Well, we'll sort that out, but we'll say that's on the 11th, 2/11. We'll sort out the specific times and let everybody know. It won't be at 2:30 in the afternoon, but
Right. I know. I was reading the meeting minutes from another town, and they met at 9 in the morning. It's like, how do you expect anybody to show up?
Yeah, I know, that's what I thought too.
maybe that's their
On a
secret
weekday
plan.
morning?
What?
On a weekday morning?
Weekday morning?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Sometimes it's like an emergency meeting.
Well, apparently you have enough people with like this.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Yes, I have a motion to adjourn on the table, it's been seconded, all those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed? The ayes have it, we are adjourned at 7:13.
70 degrees.
Well, it's right under the heat. Probably wouldn't.